My friends, you have a treat today. We have Laura Mangum-Broome, and I got that right. Laura is a resilience coach. How she came to that, though, is the more interesting part of being a resilience coach. And I think when you hear the term resilience, which may or may not be overused today, but there are a lot of things that happen to us when we go through a hard time. And I hear a lot of people say things like, well, you wouldn't have any more than you can handle happen to you. Everyone perseveres. Time heals all wounds. Absolutely untrue, 1,000%. I meet people many, many times a month in different parts of my work that don't ever do the heavy lifting that comes with healing and learning to increase their resilience. And it doesn't just happen with time. So some of us can go through hard times and we do end up for a variety of reasons side of it. Some of us just don't all. And so I think this will be an interesting conversation. As you know, I am all about resilience, trying to help people increase theirs and kind of tame trauma in their lives. We never fully get over trauma, but we do incorporate it into our lives. One sign I can tell you that when I'm working with someone who's been through something evil, whether they've had a loved one who's been murdered, as you know, I work in true crime and have worked for government for the justice system, but you can always tell when somebody says, wow, I don't know if I can talk about this. I haven't thought about it. I've tried to suppress it. These are not signs of healing or resilience. Getting through it by avoiding is never a sign of resilience. So I'm really fascinated with this concept conversation. Email me, let me know what you're thinking about it. And I look forward to introducing you to her. So thanks ever for being here. Please, as ever, if you would share this with a friend who needs to hear it, I will be so very grateful. Review the podcast. And if you really, really like, join me on Patreon. Laura Mangum-Broome, wonderful to have you today, and what a story you have to share. Thank you so much for being on Persistence U.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I love talking with you just before. So the audience wasn't there. So if you could just let us know, like leading up to about 2020, what was happening in your life that kind of made you the person that you are today?
Yes. Before 2020, I was helping my husband with his business. I was running the day-to-day operations, and a couple of years into it, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I started that journey, and fortunately, I was able to take half treatments for 6 months instead of full treatments for 3 months. But after my chemo treatments ended, uh, then I started having heart issues. While I was going through my cancer journey, I lost my son, to my oldest son, to suicide.
Oh,
And
Laura.
so that was a difficult time. And then 2020, COVID hit. And I was, because of my heart issues, I was told I would need a heart transplant. And so, right when COVID shut everything down, I went into the hospital, received my heart transplant. I only had to wait 6 days for a new heart, which is a miracle in itself.
That is a
And
miracle. If you could imagine
yeah,
getting a surgery right after COVID hit and
yeah,
a heart transplant to boot, I mean, that's huge.
it was,
So,
because they told me it could be that I'd have to wait a long time, because since COVID had shut everything down, the available organs was going to be greatly reduced. And so I went into the hospital with my work, and I planned on working during the day while I was waiting in the room. And they told me, like I said, 6 days, we found a heart for you. It's a perfect match. We're going to get you
wow.
prepped for surgery. And so 2 weeks later, I got to go home on Mother's Day weekend. Thought that was a perfect Mother's Day gift. Get to go home, celebrate with my family, with my new
Beautiful.
heart. And then months later, I found out that my marriage was over, and after almost 30 years. And that
Mm.
was very devastating. A lot of emotions, going through abandonment, betrayal, whole slew of things.
Oh,
And
Laura, I can't even imagine. I mean, you're vulnerable health-wise. You've got a
yeah,
pandemic in which you have to kind of stay at home and not get sick. And then this stress can really reduce your ability to be healthy,
yes,
you know?
yes. And I mean, my doctors were so concerned about me, because they knew what I was facing, and they were shocked by it too. And so, I mean, again, it was such a wonderful thing to be grateful for, is that I was not sickly during that time. I had to take my meds, because there'll be two meds that I'm on for the rest of my life to
Okay.
decrease the risk of infection and rejection. And but during the divorce, or when the divorce was finalized, my insurance dropped. And because we had military insurance, my husband had just retired from the National Guard. I was entitled to the insurance, but it took me 13 months to finally enroll. Everybody agreed I was eligible for it, but nobody would tell me why I couldn't enroll. And so
Oh,
that was again another difficult hardship to go through. And so 13 months I went without insurance. I paid for my medications out of pocket. And yeah, what little retirement pay I received from my ex-husband um, almost covered my medication. So I just borrowed the rest from family, and because I had to
wow.
keep my medications going. And so yeah, it's just when you think you're kind of seeing a little bit of making a little bit of headway, then something else comes along. So there's a quote from Albert Einstein that I like. Everybody knew it was impossible until a fool who didn't know came along and did it. and I felt like I was that fool, because I was like, well, not really a fool, but it's like, I am going to get my insurance. I'm entitled to it. And it did. It took me 13 months to enroll in insurance, so I could finish my follow-up visits and make
Oh
sure
my
everything was going
goodness.
well. So yeah,
You
it
did it.
I
Isn't
did
that
it.
sad that of all the hurdles, that one took such a
Oh
long
yes.
time to make it through? It is just to get medical coverage. But you
Yes.
did it.
I did
That's
it. I was not
fabulous.
giving up because I had to have it. It wasn't an option, and so I did. And that
Congratulations.
was
It's hard because life often does lump up on us in a sense that you had your son's suicide, breast cancer, heart transplant, divorce, and insurance. And for people out there who are thinking, man, my life can't get worse, which is always a scary thing to say
I
out loud
know.
because it
Don't say that.
absolutely
Yeah.
can. It absolutely can. But you know what? Sometimes then it starts getting better. When did you know that you were making a decision to be on the right path?
It was shortly after the divorce. I was really at my lowest point, and I was going through the stages of grief. And when I hit the anger stage, I got really angry. And at first I thought I was angry at my ex-husband, and I probably was, but then I realized I was angry with myself, because it's like, Laura, you have a brand new heart. Well, I mean, for me, it was a new heart, a new strong heart is what the doctors told me. And you're just in this continual pity party, and you've got the rest of your life. And I was 58 at the time. And it's like, what are you going to do with the second chance of starting your life over again. And I think that was the turning point. And so that's when I stopped focusing on what I couldn't do and what happened to me. And I started being in the present and looking forward. So it became, okay, I can't do that, but I can do this. And that's what started the forward motion.
Wow, that's fabulous. And it's just a good reminder, like it's hard in the moment and everyone deserves to have time where they feel like, okay, this is not pleasant. I'm going to feel the
Right, right.
feelings. I'm not going to pretend everything's okay, because sometimes it's just
No.
not. But
Mm-mm.
on the other hand, you still have options after all of those choices kind of taken away during the pandemic and your heart transplant and your marriage. You still have
Mhm.
choices as how to react.
That's exactly right. And when I started looking at what was in my control, I found so many things that I could do because I had control over my thoughts, my words, and my actions. And then it was like, what other resources do I have? And I realized I have so many possibilities. I have to step out of my comfort zone, and and that, a lot of people with change, it's like, but I don't want to step out. And, in my case, I was forced to step out of my comfort zone.
You were.
And and I thought, well, what else are you going to do? I mean, I didn't have a lot of options at the time, but it was better than just being stuck. And when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, then you're ready to move forward. And so I was just, I had to look at, what am I going to do now, because I did really start over from scratch. And um and and so that's I started making a list of what was in my control. I started making sure that if negative thoughts came in my head that was something that was out of my control, I would just, sometimes I'd say out loud to myself, just stop thinking that. Don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can do. And like I said, it was just little baby steps. And I started to look at things to find joy again. What was I grateful for? And that was the game changer. When I started looking at what was, what is in my life that I can be happy about, what can I enjoy and embrace? And it was those little bitty things that we take for granted. And a beautiful sunny day, that's something that I can find joy in. And so I think that's what we need to look at more, because we're wired to focus on the negative. And when we start focusing on the positive, because you can find, some people will say, no, you can't, but I'm going to tell you, you can find one good thing no matter how tragic a situation is. And it could be that at least it's not worse. And that's what I did in the beginning. I would say, well, things could be a lot worse. And I would start listing how they could be worse. And then you flip that, and there's all your gratitudes right there.
I like it. I like it. Did you reach out for support? Like, what did you do what helped you kind of go across the bridge?
I did. And for me, that was very difficult, but that was one of the areas of growth that helped me tremendously, because I'm the caregiver. I'm the one that I go and I help others. And when I found myself being in a situation where I needed help, it was hard at first to ask for help. Um, but I did. I had to say, if you don't, it's going to be harder. And so learning to ask for help, I uh, went and talked to a counselor. Actually, she was our marriage counselor previously, and I went to her for individual counseling, and that was wonderful. She helped me focus on moving forward. And I asked help from my family, and just resources. It's like, what resources are out there that can help me move forward. And
And that's so humbling. I think so many of us just feel like, no, wait, I'm the one who has the world by the tail. I help other people. I can't be the person asking for help. But if we stay stuck in that, we're not going to make it through and make the impact we
yeah.
want. So good for you. You did it, even though it was not ideal. You did it and it helped.
And it helped me going forward when I need help. I'm not so hesitant to ask for help. And and that can be a game changer because, you know, we don't want to ask for help because it means it can we can perceive that as being weak. But
Mhm.
then when you flip it around and say, would you help somebody that was in this situation? Well, my answer would be yes, of course. I'd want them to know I'm here to help in any way. And so that's what helped me to accept help from other
Right,
people because, you know, I had to swallow my pride and say, yes, I do need help. And I appreciated their concern, and it helps me to start trusting again, because when, you know, when your trust is broken, it's really hard to try to find that trust again in other people.
right, right. That was, I mean, you were married a long time,
Hmm.
right? How long were you married?
27 years. We were
That's a
together
long,
28.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And good and bad.
Right, sure, sure, sure. But good for
And
you for
yeah.
getting assistance and moving through some of those big, big things. And a little bit about the heart transplant process, because
Mhm.
I don't think I've had somebody who's been a heart trans. No, I have not had anyone who's had a heart transplant on the show before.
I didn't know
What?
anybody either.
Yes. I mean, I
Yes.
love the movie Return to Me, a romantic
Yeah.
comedy about a heart transplant.
Mhm.
It is a corny
It
movie and I love it so much. But that's about
it
as much as
is.
I know. But what was that like? And did you get to learn much about the person who donated, or when
Mhm.
do you get to know about the person who donated their organ?
Well, I protocols says that I'll be able to reach out to the clinic, the heart clinic, to contact the family of the donor, but I don't really know anything other than it. The doctor said they found me a good, strong heart, so that's what I know about it. And then it kind of slipped that it was a male heart. So,
Okay.
that's all I know. And but I'm so thankful. You know, I'm sorry under the circumstances, you know, that the donor lost their life, but I'm so thankful that I was the recipient, and because it saved my life. Because my heart was going out, and at the time I did not really understand the circumstances I was in. And because I moved to the top of the heart transplant list very, very quickly. And I was just glad because for 4 years after the cancer treatment stopped, I had such a difficult time breathing, and I was a very shallow breather. And my heart function had gone down to about 10-15%. And average is like 55% and above. So before my chemo treatment, I was at 70%, you know, functionality. And
Mhm.
so it dropped down to 10 to 15. So to tell you how bad it was, just to take a deep breath, you know, what we'll yawn or we sigh. I couldn't do that. To take a deep breath, I had to close my eyes and completely relax all my muscles and try to breathe in from my nose. And just hope that I could get that deep breath, because if I couldn't, it was almost going into panic mode because I wanted that deep breath and I couldn't get it. And so I had to just keep calming myself down to just to take that one deep breath. And so by the time I found out I was needing a heart transplant, I was ready. I was so tired. I couldn't sleep in bed. I would sleep in a rocking chair with the big pillow on my lap and just kind of sleep like that.
Mhm.
And because I just was trying to get the maximum oxygen. And
Okay.
so when they said you needed a heart transplant, it was bittersweet. It's like, bring it on, because I can't go on like this anymore. And so, but all the testing that they did, I have a good sense of humor because getting tested, poked and prodded. I'm a very ticklish person. And so every time they had to do something, I would just tell them up front, I'm very ticklish. You have my permission to hold down whatever body part you need to do whatever you need to do, because I'm just going to react, you know. And so we had a lot of fun. You know, the medical staff had fun with that too. And so I wanted to be a good patient so they would take good care of me. So they did. They
That's
loved me
great.
because I had a sense of humor, you know, but I loved them too. The whole experience, I had a wonderful heart transplant team and medical staff. I mean, it could not have gone any better.
That is so good. Well, where did you get that done, by the way? Are we allowed to ask?
Oh, yeah, it was here in San Antonio at the
Okay.
Methodist Hospital Heart and Lung Transplant Center. So
Beautiful. I
I
mean,
was,
that is
yeah,
great. Go ahead.
I was to say, I joke around and say I'm number 502. At the time I went into the hospital, they had just done their 500th heart transplant. And so I was hoping to be 501, but I was 502. So my family and I, that's kind of my nickname is 502. So
That
I,
is so great.
yeah, so it was, I mean, I was in, had complete confidence with the team. If they had done, you know, if 500 heart, successful heart transplant had, you know, gone through the process before me, I didn't have any worries at all.
Good. That is fantastic. And I bet it probably did instill inside you a little more feelings of responsibility to make sure that you were going to really appreciate the next chapters of your life. So, how did you go from all of these things and healing, getting the help that you needed to heal, to being a resilience coach?
I wanted to be able to help others because I know what it was like trying to find resources when I had very little options at the time due to COVID. And I would look for books, I would look for, you know, podcast, I look for anything that would tell me how I needed to move on. And I didn't, at the time, it's like, I don't really want to understand why, because my husband had made a choice to move on. So I needed to move on, but how? And so I guess that's where I felt like I have gone through so much stuff trying to figure it out on my own. I don't want people to have to figure it out on their own. And and through all my hardships, I figured out like a framework and that I could apply it to any type of challenge, you know, big or small. I mean,
Mhm.
I tell everybody I'm not a sickly person. I haven't had the flu in over 20 years. I don't get colds. I mean, I'm a healthy person. I just go big or go home.
Right.
And and you know, so it's like, but I do go through challenges, and so I kind of realized what helped me get through 2020 is can still be applied even when I come across challenges now. And so I want to give people hope, because if I can get through this, then I'm an ordinary person who has been through extraordinary things. But I if I can do it, you can too. and and because I think everybody should be able to move past adversity and find the joy again, because it is wonderful being on the side of adversity and finding that gift. And it doesn't mean I won't ever experience hardship again, but now I feel like I'm prepared. If I know when I see an obstacle or a challenge come up, I don't look at it now as, oh no, this is something bad. I look at it now as this is an opportunity, because I know there's going to be one good thing I can find out of this challenge. And I have my tools to get through it. I have my coping skills, my resilience tools. I know I'm going to get through this. And it may take me on a path that I would not have considered if I hadn't gone through this challenge. And so I've learned to see with my choices of how I can see things and use my resources. I look at things as an adventure now. If there's going to be a roadblock in my path, then I know there's going to be a change, but change is constant and change isn't a bad thing, but it may help bring out some um, hidden strengths that I haven't used in a while, or it may help somebody else. You know, maybe my path is crossing with somebody else who I can help. You know, it just, there's so many opportunities, so many possibilities. And I think that's what gets me excited. And I want other people to see it as excitement. Change doesn't have to be bad, but it's a choice. You know, like I said, adversity makes you bitter or better. I chose better, and I want to enjoy the second chance of my life.
And it looks like you're doing it.
I
And that
am.
is so fantastic. That's so fantastic. You've got your sense of humor intact. You are able to talk about things without it cutting you to shreds. And I'm sure you still have your days here or there because that's just part of the human experience. But
Yes.
that's really exciting. Well, where can people learn more about you and your work and connect with you if they're looking for a resilience coach?
Yes, my website is www.icopetohope.com, and that's with the number 2. And I have blogs. I do a weekly blog and a free resource, and I just want to get the word out to people that you can transform hardship into hope and flourish in life.
That's excellent. I mean, if you can do it, then
Yeah.
you've made all the choices and the steps, then it's good to know that you're there to help other people do the same. And thank you so much for being with us today on Persistence U. Appreciate it, Laura. I've enjoyed you very much.
Thank